Welcome back to another episode. I'm very excited for today's episode. I think we have north of 25 episodes now. Very excited about that. Things are going really smooth. We're moving into the holidays. This episode should be out around the second week of November or thereabouts. So, things are going good. We've been at it like 6 months. I'm really, really happy to be here. Happy to be with you again today, Josh. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. It's a great time of the year that we're moving into. I'm always excited this time of the year, but I'm even more so excited about what we're doing with this podcast and how it's growing for one thing, and it's encouraging. Even if it didn't grow, I just enjoy doing this every time when we get together and record. It's been a blessing to me, but that blessing just gets added on to when I see more people listening each week. It's an encouragement.
Yeah, that is really a cool part of it. I put up the status page and I refresh it a few times during the day, and I just like watching the number climb a little bit. It's probably not the right way to address it. You know what I mean? I should just be happy to be here, and I am. I'm just happy to be here. But I do like watching that. I like watching it tick up. So I like these little milestones that you get. Like, we've had so many downloads and so much time and stuff like that. I like watching the little charts and stuff.
Praise God. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a spreadsheet guy, so I like numbers. And I like to watch things change and watch things grow.
In this age of technology, it's a nice way to see, if you will, God's hand of blessing on it.
Indeed.
Because it doesn't have to be that way. We could put this out there and nobody could listen, but I truly believe that God has given the increase there. So
yeah, indeed. Well, I was inspired by you. I'm inspired by you in many ways. As we've gotten to know each other over the last, what is it now? Like, we've probably known each other like at least 6 years, 7 years at least.
Coming up on February would be about 8 years we've known each other.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. And been friends most of that time. We've known each other most of that time and everything. I was really inspired by you giving your personal testimony. I really enjoy I always enjoy listening to you, but when we did our interview when we did the interview with Doug, that was really short notice, and mm-hmm. You just live in this position that I admire spiritually, like where, you sort of, I don't know if it's because you kind of grew up with Christian parents. My parents were believers, but we just weren't like church-going Christians in that way. Mm-hmm. So for me, I came to know the Lord at a much later time in my life. So I think that foundationally, I don't have as much, I'm not as, I guess, like, I don't know how to say it. Like, maybe, I don't want to say not as focused, but I just don't have as much of a foundation as you do. And so I get so much from listening to you just talk and just riff on what you're thinking about things and stuff like that. And I think that partly is why we started this, because we were having those conversations. And so I learn a lot from you. I definitely appreciate you very much. And so when I heard you do your testimony, I thought, okay, I'm going to do that too, Mm. So, so I'm going to tell the story of how I came to know the Lord. And when I do this, I want to caution you that there's not going to be a ton of scripture in it. And the reason why, now normally I don't like that. Normally I don't like to hear stuff that's all like, somebody's opinion or whatever. I like when they base it in the word and stuff like that. But I'll tell you the reason why is because I didn't really understand a lot of what I read. I don't think when I read, I don't really retain very well. And so a lot of what I experienced when I got saved was talking to other Christians and sort of, I would hear things and stuff, but I wouldn't retain verses or retain specific points about the Bible. Like, anyway, I'll explain. I just wanted to say that, yours, it was like, and it's not a contest, and I get that. But
sure, yeah, everybody has their own unique testimony, their own unique way of giving it, and I think God is glorified in that. And I say that not just to you, Dan, because I think that's important as you're about to talk about it, but also for our listeners. It's important for everybody to be able to understand how to give their testimony, especially in a God-honoring way. But, excuse me, God is honored by just speaking from the heart. And I don't think it has to go a certain way. I would never try to tie somebody down to, you got to deliver your testimony this way, because I think there's a beauty in the uniqueness of each testimony for sure.
Cool. Well, I appreciate your understanding there. I like it more when somebody, like what you were doing, was going back to certain verses and saying, okay, I always remembered John 10:30, right? Mm-hmm. It's John 10:30.
Yeah. And my testimony was almost given in a hindsight too. Like, it wasn't necessarily that I was that I had that much understanding of the scripture at the time. Like, the scripture was there, I knew of it, but I didn't really understand it. And it was more so over the course of my adult life that I looked back and could see God was fulfilling this verse in my life, and I wasn't really even aware of it. So,
right.
Yeah.
In my case, he was making himself known to me in certain ways.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that was sort of, and then after I came to know him, then, and I had like he would put pivotal people in my life.
Yeah.
And then I would read something at church, or I remember specifically, well, I'll get into that.
Sure.
Okay, so just a little bit of backstory. I'm a child of divorced parents, and I lived with my mom and my stepdad, and saw my biological dad every other weekend. When I say my parents, I'm going to be referring to my mom and stepdad. So my parents lived in a country setting, but I had a suburban heart, right? I wasn't a country kid, but I was living in a country setting. And so
it's funny that I was the opposite of that. So that's cool.
Country kid living in a suburban area.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, I loved my childhood. I don't want to make it sound like it was something that I suffered from or something like that. But just to give you context, I hated school. Okay, I hated the experience of school for many reasons. But so I became an adult, and I didn't want to go into debt or be required to read a lot. So I didn't go to college. I found odd jobs and that kind of thing. I actually did end up going to college in my 30s after I married my now wife. Okay. And actually after I became a believer, right? So, but I didn't want to go to school. I didn't really want to work. I just kind of wanted to chase girls and get wasted. You know, I started drinking and taking drugs probably like around 18. I'd say 17 or so. I think when I moved out, I was like, green light. It's time to, see what life has to offer, what the world has to offer. I really wanted to be a musician. I thought that I was going to be in a band and have the musician's life, right?
Can I ask you a question too?
Of course.
Did you feel like that lifestyle of a musician, what you were looking forward to, did you feel like what those elements that you just described, did you feel like it was kind of wrapped up in it? Like that was a part of it?
You mean getting wasted and chasing girls?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was getting girls, but it was just cool. And, for whatever reason, I gravitated toward music. I had a friend who I'll talk about later that was like, this is Kiss. This is Rush. Right? And my dad, I was into like whatever popular music was. My dad had like, this is when, this is going to like really date me, but my dad got these things called compact discs.
Oh.
And the first ones we got were like Dr. Feelgood by Motley Crue and Bon Jovi's New Jersey. And I just remembered like it was 80s and 90s rock,
Yeah.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
I still remember pressing play on the cassette and watching the little wheels turn and hearing like this explosion of sound and how cool it was. And like, if I could just do that, I didn't really have a second thought about like really girls and all that stuff until I was like in high school. I had those visions of being a successful musician when I was like in middle school.
Yeah.
I didn't think about the partying and everything like that until I was like in high school, really. Or I really wasn't. I wasn't a daring person. Like I wasn't a daring kid. I didn't take chances like that. But not that much. Definitely wasn't a bad kid or anything like that. Like I didn't try to get in trouble or care. I cared about getting in trouble and stuff like that. Like I didn't want to do that. So I wanted to be a musician, but even that looked like a lot of work. Right? So, and really, for his reasons, for the Lord's reasons, I never got into the business side of the music business. Right? I believe that if I would have, that would have been brought on another set of challenges because of my addictive personality. And how, like, even today, like, I can have a drink like once in 6 months or something like that. But I've a couple of times, even now, I've gotten, in the last, like, few years, I've gotten into situations where, like, okay, I started drinking wine at one point. And then, wow, I really drank a lot of wine tonight. And then I was like, oh, I better, you know what I mean? So I've got enough, like, perspective to see the problem.
There's a proclivity there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But I have enough perspective, and my wife also is a vigilant helpmate. Right? She's
that's good.
She's been in situations in her life with substance abuse and stuff like that, so she sees it too, and is very like, "Hey, am I supposed to stop you?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She'll ask me that a lot, or like I'll look at a drink, a type of drink, like say like. They got like all kinds of fruity beers and stuff like that now, and I'll go like, "Oh, that looks kind of good," and then she'll be like, "Am I supposed to get you that or not get you that?" Because it's like she's very diligent to stay.
It's a good wife. Yeah,
that's definitely
accountability.
Yeah, accountability is good for me because that for that reason, like I say, I don't like getting in trouble, but I also don't really like being accountable. So
yeah, well, let's be honest too. Like, it's good for everybody to be held accountable to some degree. Like,
oh yeah,
the relationship has to be there, but.
Yeah, for sure. Well, some people, I think they can handle it, casually. I have friends that can casually drink.
Yeah.
And for them, it's not a sport, but for me, it becomes a sport. It starts out fine, but then it gets worse. But I've been blessed in that I have the ability to be truthful with myself. And I noticed that some people don't have that. Like, some people don't know what they think about things. But I have the ability to be honest with myself about stuff, and I think that is something the Lord blessed me with, and I've used that to keep myself out of, like, real substance abuse problems. I mean, it got pretty bad, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But but I never really got into the music side of the music business. Even when I was chasing that dream, I couldn't really get shows, right? I couldn't go out and do the business side of it because I didn't really understand how that all worked, and I didn't have connections. And like I say, it just was, he was sort of guiding my steps. You make your plans, but the Lord guides your steps. And that's sort of what he was doing. So I did this for a long time, actually, probably like 7 to 10 years, where I just was, chasing partying lifestyle and floundering in my personal life. Chasing the party, floundering. Chasing the party, floundering. And I did this for 10 years. I got high every day. If I wasn't getting high, I was chasing something. I got drunk every day. And if I wasn't getting drunk, I was doing something to earn money to get alcohol or go to the bar or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. And I made major sacrifices in life so I could do it. Right? I sacrificed family relationships. You know what I mean? I just was not a good person. Like, not a good character. And I got mad when I couldn't. You know what I mean? If I couldn't do it, it would be upsetting. So this next section here, some of the dates are a little fuzzy. A lot of my memories are a little fuzzy of that time. Just don't remember exactly the order. So I did my best to reconstruct the timeline. So I'm gonna avoid saying what the years were as best I can because I really don't remember which years. I kind of remember the order of things based on the conditions around it. So I'll just do my best here. I was in this relationship with this girl, and her brother was my best friend from elementary. In fact, he's the one who gave me, his name is Jeremy, and he gave me some of the first rock music cassettes. See, cassettes are these little plastic things.
Yeah.
No, we had rode the bus together, and he had some influences in his life. I think his parents and stuff like that liked rock music, and so they showed it to him, and he showed it to me, and so he gave me a Kiss tape, and he's like, borrow this, but bring it back, because we need this. So I went home, and I put this cassette in, and I put it in, and I pressed play, and my whole life changed. In that moment, I was like, this is a new living for me. I was going to be a rock musician. So anyway, I was dating his sister in my mid-20s, and he got saved. He heard, deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me.
Yeah.
And the Lord put those pieces of that puzzle together for him, and he was like, this is it. I'm committed. And so after that, almost every conversation we would have would lead to something about the gospel, which I found totally annoying.
Oh, yeah. You're like, listen, buddy, you gave me those Kiss tapes, and I'm with you there, but I can't follow you this way. Yeah.
Well, it was kind of like, man, can't we just say, like, this these chicken nuggets are awesome. You got any honey? You can put some, I really like this hot sauce, or, can't we just have, no, we couldn't. Everything was like, you know what? This reminds me of the Lord. And that's fine, in retrospect. Yeah, good for him, right?
Yeah.
But one thing that happened was we were having a conversation about it, and I think I must have leveled with him. And I think I just said something to the effect of, this is great and all, but this is nothing that I am worthy of. Who am I?
Yeah.
I remember we were sitting in the front seat of the car in a trailer park, and it was like, you don't get right and then come to the Lord. You come to the Lord, and He cleans you.
Yeah, it's good.
Right? And I think that moment, it was one of those little shifts toward understanding.
Yeah, because there's so many people that approach it the same way you did, thinking that way. Yeah.
That was one of those little moments. And that's really like what you had talked about in your testimony. You talked about mile marker moments.
Yeah.
So I could say that was a mile marker moment.
Sure. Yep.
Right? So I kind of kept partying after that, but I did understand what he meant, right? We were actually playing in a band together. We were doing a 2 acoustic thing for a while there, and we hung out pretty regularly, and that was just one of those moments. So I kept partying after that, and for those of you who don't party or never have, sometimes you can do so much partying that you actually sober yourself up. Right? You can go and if you go doing like an all-nighter, eventually when you wake up, when you're like in the morning, you sober up. And I remember I was sitting in my house, in my trailer, and I was awake, but I was the only one who was, and I was stone sober. And throughout my life, I had felt like something was missing, right? I had felt like a desperation up until that point since becoming an adult and sort of, like I say, chasing this and floundering, chasing this and floundering. And I had a desperation built up in me, and I tried to kind of solve this problem with psychology. I tried to understand the mind and sort of like in my spare time, I would like, this is before YouTube. So, you know, I would like get psychology books and try to read them and try to understand them and, you know, think about this thing and just sit and mull it over, you know.
Yeah. You were searching even back then.
Searching even back then, right. Yeah. There was always something sort of drawing me to finding answers. Okay. And I just remember I was sitting in this room, and I'm sober, and I'm awake, and it's probably like 4 o'clock in the morning. And I just prayed, God, if you're real, make yourself known to me. And I'm telling you that as I could feel him right in front of my face.
Wow. Yeah.
And I don't care if people say you're crazy. You're, you know, you were still on chemicals. You were this, you were that. I know that I know that I know that it was real.
Yeah. And God is in control of circumstances, right? He can make himself known in, you know, any way that he chooses. So yeah.
I mean, I won't say I saw anything because I didn't see it.
Sure.
But it was, his presence was as plain as day.
Wow. Yeah.
And I just knew right at that moment that God was real and his son is real.
Yep.
Right. I believe that may be the moment when I got saved.
Yeah. Seek and ye shall find. You asked him and he answered.
He answered in a big way.
Yeah. Yep.
In a way that is undeniable. And like I said before, I'm the kind of person, I'm actually skeptical.
Sure.
I'm actually a big skeptic. I don't like magic. I don't like going to car dealers and having car salesmen talk to me.
Yeah.
I'm a skeptic at heart. But when that happened, I knew this is legit.
Yeah.
This is not because I thought of Christians before that. They are a group of people that tells themselves something to make themselves feel better. That's what I thought of Christians before that. They're just making this up so that they feel better about the horrible things they do. That's sort of how I looked at it, right?
Yeah.
And I guess like in that moment, I couldn't deny it anymore. Right? I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
In that moment, now not to say that I just jumped in with both feet and was like Mr. Christian after that.
Sure, yeah.
Because I definitely was not.
Yeah.
I didn't think I even quit getting high after that. Right? But I know that I was around the age of 25 because in 2005, I came to the realization that I was no further along in my goal of becoming a musician than I was when I got out of high school. And this really upset me. You know, this really upset me. And again, this is kind of before, this is when YouTube was sort of really coming about. Okay. And I didn't have the money to get guitar lessons. And I never, like I say, being a musician looked like work, so I never did the actual work of actual musicianship to do things like learn scales and learn chords and do this. And if I wanted to play a song and it had a minor chord in it, I was like, well, I guess I'm not playing this song.
Yeah. That's where I'm at in guitar right now. I'm there. I'm like, there's certain chords I can play, and if it's got like a bar chord, I'm done.
Oh, see, we got to sit down and do that.
Yeah,
then.
I know.
I got to teach you.
I need to get through that for sure. Yeah.
That's seems to be it was like if it had a B minor or an F in it, forget it. I'm not doing either of those.
I got
chords.
this song right now that I love, and I'm like, it would be so cool if I could play this song, but it's got one of those F bar chords.
Oh yeah,
and I'm like,
it's all
that's rough.
over.
Yeah.
So yeah, but what I would do at that time, okay, so I said, all right, I'm no further along than I was when I began. So what I would do is I would go down to the library, go from my house to the library, and I would watch a YouTube video from this guy called Justin Sanderco. Shout out justinguitar.com. And he's British. I think he's probably like, I'm Australian. No, I don't know what he was. I'm pretty sure he's British.
Okay.
And it's showing my Americanism there. But I don't know that one accent from another. But it was. But anyway, he would teach scales, and so I'd learn something, and then I would go home, and I'd practice it, and I'd go back to the library and learn, and come back home and practice it. So I started kind of getting this idea of like, okay, I'm gonna actually commit I'm gonna do some of the legwork of actually becoming a better musician, you know. And as that kind of happened, I sort of started maturing, right? And somehow throughout that time frame, and I can't remember how it happened, but I got connected with this guy called Russ Park, and he's a pastor at a church near where we lived, and he's a Baptist preacher, and this guy knew the word like backwards and forwards, and I didn't know it, you know, but I felt this kind of like he would have conversations with me, and we would talk about things that no one else would talk to me about, and from a position of knowing the word and knowing sort of how to sort of contend with these different things. He was kind of on the tail end of his ministry, and so not tail end, but like of that particular section of his ministry, because he ended up actually leaving that church and not being a full-time. I think he's like a full-time pastor now or something like that, but I don't think he's really actually like spearheading like being the senior pastor of a church at this point. I think he's like an associate pastor. But he was kind of experienced, is my point, right? He'd been doing it for almost 30 years at that point, or maybe 30 years even. I don't really know when he had actually started. But he could answer questions that I had about all sorts of things. And one of the questions that I remember we were at McDonald's, and I remember I asked him, like, I'm afraid to commit to faith because I'm afraid my friends are going to dump me. Right?
You're friends, like, I'm afraid they're going to be like I was, you know, telling them, it's great if we talk about Kiss and chicken nuggets, but you came full circle there.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I don't want these people to reject me.
Yeah.
And he said, if those people reject you because you come to know the Lord, they were never your friends to begin with.
Great response. Yeah.
Right? And there it was again. One of those little milestone moments. So I was also at this time in therapy. Now, I had done therapy with my family, with my parents and my brother a little bit, and we had a great therapist, and it was a good experience for me personally. And I felt that going to therapy and I've always felt that, like, maybe that's partly why we do this podcast, right? I feel a ability to just lay it out for what it's worth and just say, here's what I got. Here's everything I have. What do you think of this?
Yeah.
Help me understand this.
Talking it out. It helps.
Talking it out, right?
Yep.
And I can do that. I think naturally God's put that in me to be able to do that. So I was going to therapy at the time, and I had a therapist different from the one that my family visited, you know, because we had stopped many years before that. But I had started going again to this therapist's office, and she happened to be a Christian. And I don't remember. I know she was a really committed Christian, and she actually like got forced out of her job because of it at a later time. But while I was seeing her, she had said to me, "There's this opportunity that you have through this organization to go to a rehab facility." And I thought, if I could get away from these people and this place for just enough time to get clear-headed, I could get a start. So it wasn't like I was laying in the gutter with a needle in my arm, but I was drinking and getting high every day, and I couldn't stop, and I couldn't get away from these people that did it. And I just felt like I was kind of in this weird cycle where I was not going to be able to get away from it.
Yeah.
So that was an opportunity that I could do, and it actually was really, it was like within an hour away or whatever. And so I went, and I got the opportunity to go. And for the first time, I had clarity of thought, like where I could really, you know, figure it out. I could really like, I saw a different therapist there, and really that experience has a lot of little pieces that I won't go into now because there were so many cool things that happened there, and I was really grateful for that time. And unlike many of the other people that were in there, I was probably like the only person who was there voluntarily.
Okay.
Everybody else was kind of forced into it. And I saw like some stuff, like a guy whose brain was completely fried from drinking to the point where he was shaking,
Wow.
and he couldn't, he just, when he talked, he just kind of shook, and he's totally clean. You know what I mean? He's clean guy. He's clean, but he just had ruined his brain.
A permanent effect.
Permanent, perma-drunk,
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, there's a lot going on. There was a lot in that one section of time in my life, just that little 2-week period that I could really talk about and everything. But
I bet just observing the other people there was sobering for you. Would you say?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. You get a perspective like, okay, I'm far gone, but I'm not that far gone.
Sure, yeah.
And not that I'm better. Definitely I'm not. Now, at the time, I thought I was. I thought I'm so much better than these people. Like I'm doing
nature.
I'm doing really well.
Yeah.
By comparison to these people. You know what I mean? Which is a terrible thing to think, but that's how I thought.
Yeah. Most people think that. They don't always voice it out loud, but yeah.
So I was there for 2 weeks, and at the end of the 2 weeks, I came home, and I was really concerned that, first of all, I knew all those people were going to reject me. I had come to that terms with that these friendships are chemical friendships, right? They're based on this thing, and if I didn't get high, these people would. That's another part about it. I think really that I understood was these people do not care about me. These people care about getting high and other people who get high, and if they don't get high, they're not in this group, right? But I did have a best friend at the time, a different, I have several, I will just call them brothers, right? It's like people, you have these friends in life and it's like, is this my best friend? Is that my best friend? I don't know. They move into this period of like, we're not friends now we're like brothers,
Yeah.
And then I had the girlfriend that I had at the time, the sister to my very good friend. And I thought, okay, this friend named Steve, I like this dude. My girlfriend at the time, I was like, those are the two people that I care the most about. If those two stick with me, then everything will be great. If they don't, then that'll be a big regret. But that was really only my big concern. And I went home, and she rejected me, and
now,
he did not.
Is this the friend? You said his name is Steve. Is this the same guy that had told you first about like?
No.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm trying to protect their anonymity.
Sure. Yep.
But also to talk about them.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
You don't have to give the name.
So Jeremy and I are still friends to this day.
Okay.
Jeremy's my the guy that really, that's the one, the original friend. Okay. So we'll just say Jeremy. Okay.
Sure.
So Jeremy, he and I were like, my wife introduced him to his wife.
Okay.
Like we're still friends.
Awesome.
Our wives work together. We're communally sort of, we don't hang out much because, life has taken us apart a little bit, but that's, it's not like a personal thing. It's just the way things have shaped up.
Yep, absolutely.
But my friend at the time, Steve, and my girlfriend, Jeremy's sister, I thought she'll stick around, he won't. That's how I thought, and it was the opposite. She said, "Why would you do this to me?
Mm-hmm.
Why would you ever do this?"
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, she didn't really understand that I needed to do this and that the Lord was guiding me. And I didn't really even understand it at that time. Now, that ended, okay, and that relationship ended. So I needed a place to live, and I moved out and I moved into my grandparents' house. Now, at that time, my grandmother was sick with Alzheimer's and cancer. So she was really nearing the end of her life.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived with Grandma and Grandpa. And again, the details, the timelines are a little fuzzy. But okay, let me start over. So I lived at my grandparents' house after that relationship ended. And I needed a place to stay, so I went there, and my grandfather and grandmother are committed Church of Christ people. They've been that way since my mom was little, at least,
Mm-hmm.
And their daughter, my aunt, she came to Michigan, and when we were there, I remember I was in the back, and this is another one of those mile marker moments, right?
Yeah.
She came in the back. She was standing at the laundry machine, and we were talking, and she said, "The Lord made a choice in the garden. He had every right to wipe man out and start over. When Adam and Eve sinned, they broke that chain, right? And he was well within his rights to wipe out man and start over, but instead he did not. He decided to hold off and send Jesus to pay that price." And that was just like one of those things that made sense to me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now again, I had all these other experiences, right? I had sort of understood it. I was sort of already kind of a Christian at that point. Like I understood the principles. I don't know if I knew them in a saving way, if that makes sense. I knew the facts. I believed them to be true, but I didn't really. It wasn't like in my heart. Does that make sense? Or?
Sure. Yeah. No, you're coming to that point of realization, like we are not disposable to God. That's how much God cares for us and loves for us. And you're right. That's a monumental moment to reach in life, for sure.
So when she said those words about him having an opportunity, or being well within his rights to destroy us, to start over.
Yeah, he would be justified in doing that.
Justified in doing it.
Yeah.
But instead, he doesn't. Instead, he you know what I mean? I think that, for whatever reason, that was one of those moments where it was like one of those 1-degree shifts that amounts to miles of difference down the road. Right?
Yep, for sure. Yep.
I kind of was praying at the time. I was sort of, I was coming to know him a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if I was attending at that point. I don't think I was. But I had been praying periodically. And I remember I was going down the road, and I was going over these railroad tracks, and I kind of had this habit of taking all of my problems and heaping them up on my shoulders and walking around with them, and whether I was going to pay my bills or what I was going to do, anything that was stressful, I was sort of carrying like I was the only person that cared about me. I remember like when I was a teenager, I actually had the thought, no one else is going to care for me. I need to do it myself,
Yeah.
And I think I had that mentality all the way into this moment when I realized I had been praying for a few maybe days or weeks or whatever for a time period before that. And I literally felt an arm's lengthening of my problems because I had said, Lord, these are your problems.
Yeah.
These are not my problems. They're your problems. I need your help. You know what I mean? It's like, if I need food, and I didn't have this part of the thought then, but I understand it now. It's like, if I needed food, is him providing it for me.
Yeah. And that's music to God's ears to hear his children say things like that. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so I felt an arm's lengthening is how I remember it, because it wasn't so much that it was like this great explosion of relief. It was more like I didn't feel that burden any longer. I didn't feel that tremendous weight. I knew the weight was still there, but it was over there. You know what I mean? I still had to deal with these problems. I still had to make my bills, and I still had to get to work, and I still had to do it on time and with respect to other people and all this good stuff. But
right.
But I just sort of didn't have that. I had that cast your cares on him because he cares for you feeling.
Yes. Yeah.
I had that that Philippians 4, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
don't be anxious for anything, but in everything with prayer and petition, make your request known to God, and the peace of God, which transcends understanding, will
Right.
guard your heart and mind in Christ.
Yeah, that's good.
Right? That was a big one for the church I was going to, so I must have been attending church at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a big one there because it was like, he doesn't say, bring your request to God and he'll back the truck up and dump everything you ever want dump on the gold on your front porch,
Yeah, yeah.
No, he says the peace of God will transcend your, you know what I mean? It's like, that's what I had in that moment. I understood the peace of God.
It's something that money can't buy. The peace of God, yeah.
Yeah.
It's invaluable.
Right, yeah. So, as I mentioned, I'm a musician, and I've always kind of liked, and there's a band that I had been introduced to called Mike Maines and the Branches, and they had a song on their album. They have an album called Home. You should definitely check it out. It's artistically heightened, good album. There's a song on that album called Lady Love. And in the song Lady Love, he says, Lady Love, oh Lady Love, what have we become? If you're the center of my universe, then what is left when you're gone? And I originally had heard that, and I thought to myself, he meant, she's so great that when she's gone, there's nothing left of him. What a great song. And then one day, I realized that what he meant was, if you're the center of my universe, I'm going to be crumbled.
Yeah.
If you're the center of it, when you go away, I'm not going to be able to stand.
Yeah.
And I thought, he means I can't make you the center of my universe.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yep. I could see where, like, at face value, it wouldn't be abundantly clear, but like as you think about it, like you're describing, you see like that's what his original intent is for those lyrics. Yeah.
For those lyrics, or at least that's how the Lord made it present to me. Like I've cared so much about relationships up until this point.
Yep.
That that I idolized those relationships, and I'd idolized other things too throughout life, but it was always sort of about him. And somewhere in this time, definitely after that point, I met my now wife, and we started attending at this church of the pastor that I mentioned before, and then so my faith started growing, and I remember I would listen to messages, and I had a very good friend that I'm not even talking about that was there's so much more to this, right? These are just moments that I was reminded of as I was creating the content for this specific podcast, but there's like so much more going on, so many little things that, as has been said in the past, look like chaos when they're happening.
Yeah.
But then when you turn around and look, they're perfectly woven.
Yeah. In hindsight, you see it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so as that sort of happened, I sort of just kind of came to know him more and started. And I remember when I was attending at that church, I would go, and we lived probably like 12 miles away, 15 miles away. And I remembered I would go Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and to open the Word, it was like every page had something more for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was so cool to have those moments where like, I haven't even looked at this book yet.
Yeah.
Fresh
and exciting.
Yeah, fresh and exciting,
Yep.
And now I have to dig a little deeper, try a little harder to get to those moments, you know what I mean? But that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's fine. But I just remember that was an exciting time. I remember like that church was really good about doing simple ministry for for like the poor, and they did stuff for like Baptist Children's Home. And so I remember one year we collected food for them, and I don't know if they still do it or not, but they did it every harvest season, and they would put the food on the steps of the non-perishable items on the steps of the church, not the church, but the stage where the pastor would, what's the word I'm looking for?
You mean like where he stands?
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
Like, I don't know.
On the stage.
Yeah.
Feels like stage is not the right word, but anyway.
Yeah.
And so we would put food there, and it would kind of build throughout the holiday season. And by the end of it, it was just like the biggest.
The platform.
The platform.
Yeah. There you go. It was late.
Yeah, it was on the platform. Yeah, on the stage didn't feel right.
Yeah.
But on the platform, there would be, on the steps leading up to it, there was just so much of this non-perishables, and it almost became like a fun thing.
Yeah.
To go and fill it up and to bring more every week, you know what I mean? And so those are just little things that I remember. I remember he would do a more informal Sunday night where he would talk about the message that he had Sunday morning, where he would say like, okay, we're asking trivia questions, and the winner gets a piece of candy, you know, and he would throw the candy from in front of the church to wherever you were sitting.
Yeah.
You know, so just be bombing
engagement,
Kit Kats all, you know, and that was just cool, you know, and it made me like, I'd be like so attentive on Sunday morning because I can take tests, you know, and I was like, I was be like, okay, I'm gonna like just soak this all in, and then when I get there, I'm gonna have every answer and all that stuff. And you know, I did really soak it in and really learn a lot at that time. And it was just so cool because the Lord really had somebody in place for me that that was so knowledgeable about the Word and could so answer all the little questions that I had. And, you know, and I'd say, well, what about this? What about that? And then, you know, just sort of direct me on different things, or what does this mean? You know, and who's this Herod guy and why does that matter? And, you know, all this stuff, you know, and so not everybody's like that. You know what I mean? Not everybody can do that. But yeah, that was. And then I came to know my wife, and we got married in that church, and then the rest is history.
Yeah, praise God.
You've been listening to the Life and Faith podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Stay up to date on all our episodes, like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.